Looking back on how we used to travel in the past is always a wild time because it's absolutely insane to see how far we've come in a short amount of time. That's why today we will be looking ahead to the future to see what travel will look like in a few years. Let's get started, shall we? First up, let's look into increasingly blurred lines between work, life, and travel. The CEO of Airbnb recently said that he believes that travel in a decade or two will look completely different in terms of mentality. He would later go on to say that he believes that the home is going to be the future of travel. If you can believe that. In some ways, it makes sense too. With people able to work thousands of miles away from where they live, with online systems in place for just about everything, it may make sense that people choose to live in more exotic locations and just work from there. Next, taking cruise ships to the air or even space? Cruise ships are a relaxing way of taking the slow drive around the water, exploring the ocean and what it entails across a multiple-day event. This same thing may come to the skies and eventually space if some early reports are to be believed. Air travel has always felt cutting edge, with its speed and efficiency, but often lacks many of the amenities that are afforded to other forms of travel. That's where the concept of huge planes that would be powered by electric engines come in. The plane would have a pool on it, as well as places to stay and explore the skies. This concept actually is not that different from the one that Elon floated. Get it? To NASA when pitching a civilian cruiser to Mars, and so hey, maybe this idea isn't as crazy as we first thought. This option would definitely be a luxury type cruiser though, since there is no tangible use to slow travel like this as a way to move groups of people, at least not until we are spacefaring ready. Now let's look at public pods. Automated travel is going to be a part of the world very soon. That much is clear just by looking at popular car trends like Tesla and seeing the amount of focus put on it. Public transportation may look completely different in 20 years too, with pods of travel handled entirely by AI programs and just monitored by humans. In places like New York and Chicago, this will undoubtedly happen as the infrastructure is already there. Some believe that price points of the pod will be determined by factors such as how nice it is, what features or time distancing tools exist on it, as well as if you want to share a pod with a stranger. Think of the pod transportation system like a mix between a train and a subway and an Uber, with individualization being a huge part of it. Public pods could also be used in air travel with planes, or with buses even. This idea has plenty of traction and is likely to be implemented in some way in the next couple years. Next, we're talking about seamless air travel. Expanding on the pod concept is Clip Air, an air transportation service that will work sort of like how semi-trucks do. Clip Air hopes to eliminate any awkward or janky parts of travel by plane, even down to when you are no longer on the plane as well. The technology will allow passengers to be dropped off at trucks, trains, or any kind of land vessel, which could open up a ton of possibilities on space usage for airports, as there would now be a simple way to transport the plane's occupants without having to herd people onto a shuttle. The engineers have went so far as to suggest that you could theoretically go to sleep at a capsule in the bus station only to wake up halfway across the world thanks to the separation of pilot and guests, similar to a train in some ways. Now, traveling to Mars. Elon Musk has been a catalyst in the new space race, this time a more privatized one than back when it was the United States against the Soviet Union. One of Musk's promises has revolved around commercial space travel, and he has even developed a sort of space vessel to use it. The spacecraft will be kind of like a space version of a seafaring ship and will be a long process, but with plenty to do. There will be sports and recreation, with the end goal of traveling to a colony on Mars. But what will that look like? Here's what we know so far. The Mars Colony. The Mars Colony will be set up to support life within a bubble or dome that will provide us with oxygen and help us to cultivate the planet. Think of the situation as like a portable ecosystem that we would live in, with the costs to live on Mars plus travel arrangements in the big space boat. The Mars Colony will be an expensive dream, but Elon has said that if the need arises to leave Earth behind and the Mars model successfully works, that you would be able to go into debt and pay it off on Mars if needed. Obviously, we don't know the specifics of this plan even in the slightest, but it looks like a good time to start saving. Next, we're looking at City Airbus. Silicon Valley has decided to tackle the traffic issues plaguing most cities. cities, particularly those in California, which lack solid public transportation in general. The City Airbus is another quad plane that hopes to solve traffic issues by pushing people into the sky. The plane is able to take off vertically too, which would make its implementation even easier as it wouldn't need some sort of runway. The City Airbus, like the flying car, would really be a jaw-dropping addition to public transportation and truly a signal that technology is moving past even our wildest sci-fi dreams. Finally, the Airbus could gain traction, as Elon Musk's similar design for underground tunnels that help alleviate traffic has recently been approved in Florida, meaning this may not be as fantastical of an idea as it first might have seemed. But what about general space travel? SpaceX recently sent the first full crew of civilians into orbit around the Earth, and so clearly the world's minds are gearing up to prepare for a more casual kind of space travel, which I think most of us are more than cool with. It has been predicted that space travel will be much less of an accomplishment a few decades from now, with it being more like air travel than the crazy expensive venture that it currently is. If you are someone who is fascinated by the concept of traveling amongst the stars, then this has to be great news. But also, be ready for some pretty high costs to start, as oftentimes these journeys are in the millions already. While this cost will surely go down, space travel for the masses will most likely take place in large vessels and not in the individualized vessels that are being developed right now. Now we're looking at high-speed rails. High-speed trains are popular across Europe and in Japan, but they have yet to catch up in the United States, due mostly to the fact that Americans just like to drive. Reports have stated before this may not be the case, however, as transportation complaints have become more and more common in these last couple of years, especially in bigger cities on the West Coast. A potential fix to this would be implementing the high-speed train systems that other countries are utilizing to great effect. This would make a trip from Chicago to Los Angeles take less than 6 hours, which is a little longer than how long it currently takes to fly there. The trains are much safer and feature the ability to move around, sink into private pods, and much more. But the popularity of car and plane companies are making it pretty hard to venture into this space. In a few years, though, this dream concept could become reality. Lastly, we have supersonic planes. High-speed trains aren't the only form of transportation that is in dire need of a makeover, though. As supersonic planes threaten to change air travel forever, the plane can go almost 3 times as fast as your average commercial plane today, and would shorten trips drastically, with experts estimating the 10-hour trip from Tokyo to San Francisco would take only about 6 hours, or perhaps even less. As of now, the only real concern stems from the fact that the estimated impact on the environment per passenger would be significantly higher than the subsonic planes that we currently are using. With the technology already close to implementation for many top airlines, I'm sure engineers are scrambling to find a way to avoid the steep cost of the environmental toll in order to get it approved for public use. Could you imagine cutting your trip nearly in half, though? A real game changer for sure. And that's all for our video today. Are there any futuristic traveling options that we missed out on mentioning? Leave a comment down below to let us know. If you enjoyed the video today, leave a like. And if you want to see more videos like this one uploaded literally all the time, leave a subscription. That's all for me, guys. I gotta go book my space trip to Mars. See ya.